The courtroom fell silent the moment she stepped in. Every eye turned, not to the billionaire CEO in his tailored suit, not to the judge, but to her. A woman carrying the weight of betrayal, heartbreak, and a secret so explosive it could shatter an empire. And in her arms, the tiny child who held the blood of the man sitting at the bench. The man who swore he didn't know them. "Do you accept this child is yours?" the judge asked, and for the first time, Alaric Thorne didn't have an answer. "Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. James Stories, your own family's story channel. A heavenly God. Today we bow our hearts with humility. Please cover every woman in this family with your divine protection. Give her strength when she is tired, peace when she is overwhelmed, and the honor the world often forgets to give. She is the heartbeat that keeps families alive. Let no woman here ever feel invisible, because in your eyes, she is precious and powerful. My beautiful family, this story was built with love and emotion, especially for the women who feel and understand deeply. If your heart is true like the video, if your love is real, write "I am" with Mr. James. The courtroom didn't hum, it held its breath. Mahogany panels climbed the walls like monuments to old power. Brass railings gleamed under soft white lights. Reporters crowded the back rows, fingers hovering above keyboards, eyes hungry for scandal. Women in tailored coats whispered behind manicured hands. Men in custom suits leaned toward each other with polite smiles that carried sharp edges. Boston's elite had come for a wedding in legal form. They weren't expecting a reckoning. Alaric Thorne stood at the front beside his fiancée, one palm resting lightly on the polished bench, as if he had already signed the room into belonging to him. 34 years old. CO genetic empire builder. His dark hair was combed back without a strand out of place. His blue eyes calm enough to pass for bored. Vivienne Sterling stood at his side like sculpture, pale, elegant, diamond earrings catching every flicker of light. Her lips curved in a practiced smile that belonged on magazine covers and shareholder meetings. The judge adjusted his glasses and flicked through a thick folder. "Mr. Thorne," he said. "Tone neutral. This pre-nuptial agreement finalizes the Sterling-Thorne merger. Once signed, both parties will be legally bound." Alaric nodded. Vivienne's fingers brushed his sleeve. Cameras lifted. Pens hovered. The judge reached for his pen. That was when the doors opened. They didn't slam. They didn't creak. They swung inward slowly, as if the building itself hesitated. A ripple passed through the gallery. Heads turned. Whispers died halfway through forming. A young woman stood framed in the doorway, winter coat still clinging to her shoulders, curls pulled back loosely, as though she hadn't bothered with a mirror this morning. Her skin glowed warm against the cold stone backdrop, her face calm in a way that felt deliberate. Too steady for someone stepping into a lion's den. Beside her stood a little girl, tiny, wrapped in a soft lavender sweater, dragging behind her a wheeled oxygen tank that squeaked faintly with every step. The sound carried. Squeak, squeak. It sliced through the silence sharper than shouting ever could. Alaric's lawyer frowned. Vivienne's eyes flicked over the pair, dismissive at first, until she noticed the tank. The judge blinked. "Can I help you, ma'am?" The woman walked forward anyway. Not fast, not slow. Measured. Each step echoed. The child's grip tightened around her hand. Reporters began snapping photos. A bailiff stepped forward uncertainly. Before he could speak, a young clerk rushed down the side, eye holding a thin folder, like it was on fire. "Your Honor," she whispered urgently, slipping it onto the bench. The judge opened it. "Read." Stilled. His gaze lifted, past the woman, past the child, and landed on Alaric Thorne. "Mr. Thorne," he said slowly, voice carrying across every polished surface, "an emergency paternity motion has been filed in this court." A murmur surged like wind through dry leaves. Vivienne's posture stiffened. "What?" she breathed. The judge's eyes didn't leave Alaric. "I am required to ask you, under oath." He paused, looked at the girl again. Something in his expression changed. "Do you accept this child is yours?" Gasps cracked the air open. Phones tilted. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Alaric didn't move. For a beat, he looked almost amused. Then his jaw tightened. "Nung." The word landed clean, hard. He didn't even glance at the child. "I don't know this woman," he continued calmly. "She was a temporary employee, a junior researcher. She became attached." The woman's fingers twitched around her daughter's hand. Alaric straightened his jacket. "This is extortion. That child is a prop." Nova flinched at the word. Vivienne turned toward him sharply. "Alaric." He didn't look at her. The woman stepped forward one pace. Her voice was quiet, but it reached everyone. "I didn't come for his money." The room leaned toward her. "I didn't come for child support." Alaric scoffed softly. She lifted her eyes to him. "I came for his brother's promise." Something flickered in his stare. "Gun." The judge frowned. "Explain." The woman inhaled. Slow. "Deliberate. My name is Kaya Moretti." Whispers bloomed again. Alaric blinked once. The clerk who had delivered the file stared at Kaya with something like respect. "My daughter is Nova," Kaya said. Nova lifted her chin. Her eyes, too intense for 5 years old, tracked Alaric in a way that made several people shift uncomfortably. Kaya swallowed. "Your brother Elias knew about her." That landed heavier. Someone in the back muttered, "Elias is dead." Kaya nodded once. "He protected us." Alaric finally laughed, a short, humorless sound. "My brother funded dozens of charities. She wasn't one of them." Kaya crouched beside Nova, adjusted the strap of the oxygen mask gently. He read her bedtime stories. A camera shutter clicked too loudly. He learned how to clean that machine when it clogged. Nova whispered, "Mum." Kaya squeezed her hand. He called her Starshine. Alaric's eyes dropped, just for a second. Enough. Vivienne saw it, her brows knit. The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Thorne, did your brother ever mention this child?" "No." Instant. Flat. Kaya stood again. "You fired me 3 months after I told you I was pregnant." "That is not true." "You reassigned my projects." "Restructuring." "You erased my research access." "You were underperforming." Kaya smiled faintly, not happy, knowing. "You never liked variables you couldn't control." Alaric stepped closer to the bench. "I will not entertain this circus." Nova coughed, a dry, rattling sound. Kaya stiffened. The judge raised a hand. "Court will remain in session." Vivienne whispered sharply, "What is she talking about?" Alaric finally looked at her. "We'll deal with this." His gaze slid back to Kaya. Cold. You picked the wrong date. Kaya met it. No, she said. I picked the only one that mattered. As the judge ordered a recess, Kaya reached into her bag and pulled out a slim black tablet, and Alaric recognized the encrypted logo glowing on its screen. His company's internal firewall mark. His smile vanished. The logo glowed for only a second. That was all it took. Alaric Thorne knew every mark associated with his empire. The subsidiaries, the shell firms, the research clusters buried 3 layers down from public view. That symbol on Kaya's tablet belonged to a firewall so advanced even his senior engineers joked about it like a myth. The courtroom didn't notice. Alaric did. His smile thinned. The judge cleared his throat. This court will take a brief recess while I review the filing. The gavel struck once. Sharp. Final. A bailiff called for order, but nobody moved. Reporters leaned forward as if magnetized. Lawyers whispered into sleeves. Socialites craned their necks to get a better look at the woman with the oxygen tank. Vivienne Sterling turned toward Alaric, voice low but tight. What firewall logo? Alaric didn't answer. Kaya lowered the tablet back into her bag, slow and careful, as if she knew exactly who had seen it. Nova shifted beside her, the plastic tubing brushing against Kaya's coat. You okay, baby? Kaya murmured. Nova nodded, though her breathing sounded shallow. Alaric's lawyer grabbed his arm. We should step outside. No, Alaric muttered. His eyes never left Kaya. Vivienne followed his gaze. Recognition sparked too late. You know her, Vivienne said. It wasn't a question. Kaya felt the weight of that stare and met it. I used to, she said calmly. Alaric exhaled through his nose. You were in a lab coat for 6 months. Don't inflate your RA. You fired me 2 weeks after Elias transferred funding to my project, Kaya replied. Vivienne's head snapped toward him. Elias. The name? It rippled outward. The judge paused halfway down from the bench, clearly reconsidering the idea of leaving. Explain, he said. Alaric's jaw flexed. My brother donated to research divisions all the time. Not under a private alias, Kaya said. She reached into her bag again. Not for the tablet this time. For a folded letter. The paper was creased from being opened too many times. She held it up. He signed this. Alaric laughed, brittle. Anyone can forge a signature. Kaya didn't argue. She handed the letter to the bailiff. Have the court clerk verify the handwriting. The bailiff hesitated, then passed it forward. The judge opened it. Read the first line. His eyebrows climbed. Vivienne leaned toward Alaric. Why would Elias write her anything? Alaric whispered back. He wouldn't. Kaya watched him carefully. He wrote because he knew, she said. Knew what? The judge asked. That Nova is his niece. The word landed differently than daughter. Heavier. Alaric scoffed. Absurd. Kaya didn't raise her voice. You started running internal audits last year. So, you flagged my genetic sequencing as restricted access. That's standard protocol. For a respiratory defect, only 3 families on record have. Alaric blinked. Too slow. Vivienne saw it again. She studied him now instead of Kaya. Nova tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mum, I'm tired. Kaya crouched immediately. The oxygen tank hissed softly. Her fingers moved with practiced speed, checking the valve, smoothing the tube. Alaric watched despite himself. He hated that he was watching. The judge cleared his throat. Ems? Moretti, why come now? Kaya stood. Because my daughter doesn't have time. That quiet honesty cracked through the room, more sharply than any accusation. A woman in the front row pressed a hand to her mouth. Alaric crossed his arms. She could have gone to the press. Kaya's gaze flicked toward the reporters. I didn't come for headlines. Then why today? She looked at Vivian. At your merger. Vivian stiffened. Kaya turned back to the judge. Once Thorne Genomics absorbs Sterling Biotech, the patent portfolio becomes untouchable for years. Alaric snapped. Speculation. Kaya's mouth curved faintly. Corporate law, actually. The judge frowned. Vivienne stared at Alaric like she was seeing him for the first time. You never mentioned freezing any trials. He didn't respond. Kaya spoke again. My daughter needs a transplant therapy that exists. That's a lie. I helped design part of it. Silence fell like snow, slow, heavy. You were a junior employee, Alaric said. I was the one who solved the enzyme stabilization problem. Kaya replied. Nova whispered. Kaya squeezed her hand again. The judge tapped his pen. Mr. Thorne, is there such a therapy? Alaric hesitated. One breath too long. There are experimental models. Kaya nodded once. There it is. Vivienne's face drained. You told investors trials were inconclusive. They are. Kaya tilted her head. Then why did Elias transfer $6 million into an off-books pediatric fund? The judge looked up sharply. Alaric's lawyer muttered. Wa object. Sit. The judge snapped. The gallery buzzed. Kaya continued. He paid for Nova's scans under a false name. How would you know? Alaric demanded. Because I watched him hold her when she couldn't breathe. That landed harder than data. Vivienne whispered. Alaric. He still didn't look at her. Kaya reached into her bag again. This time, she pulled out printed records. Bank transfers. Dates. Signatures. The judge accepted them. His expression darkened. Mr. Thorne. Alaric spoke quickly. My brother was impulsive. He was careful, Kaya said. He made me promise something. The judge asked. Fat, if anything happened to him, I'd bring this to court. The room froze. Vivienne's eyes widened. What do you mean anything? Kaya inhaled. He was scared. Alaric laughed too loudly. Convenient. He said someone inside the company was watching him. Alaric's gaze sharpened. Did he say who? Kaya studied him. He said, the closer the blood, the sharper the knife. A collective inhale swept the courtroom. Vivienne stepped back from Alaric. Just 1 inch. But everyone saw it. The judge straightened. This court is extending recess until further notice. No, Kaya said quietly. Heads snapped toward her. You don't get to pause this. Alaric stared. I've waited 5 years. Nova coughed again. Longer this time. Kaya lifted her into her arms without hesitation. Her voice stayed steady. She doesn't have 5 months. The judge hesitated, then nodded once. Proceed. Alaric's lawyer whispered urgently. Alaric ignored him. You're enjoying this, he said to Kaya. She shook her head. I hate every second. Vivienne whispered. Then why are you smiling? Kaya looked tired suddenly. I'm not smiling. She lifted her chin. I'm bracing. Kaya reached into her coat one more time. Not for documents. but for a sealed evidence drive stamped with THORNE genomizer SINTRNLONLY, and said softly, "Before you decide anything, Your Honor, you should hear what Elias recorded." The judge ordered a recess. The word landed like a crack of thunder. Chairs scraped. Voices burst loose. Reporters sprang to their feet, fingers flying across glowing screens, whispering into phones, already shaping headlines before the ink of reality had dried. Alaric's attorneys closed in around him in a tight formation, 3 dark suits, low, urgent voices, hands gesturing sharply. "This is spiraling," one murmured. "Why need containment? Delay proceedings." Alaric didn't answer. His eyes tracked only one place, across the courtroom. Kaya sat alone on a narrow wooden bench, Nova leaning into her side, the oxygen tank tucked close like a fragile companion that had learned to stay quiet. Kaya's arm curved protectively around her daughter's shoulders, her fingers brushing slow circles against the thin fabric of Nova's sleeve. Her face looked calm, too calm. But her jaw stayed tight. Every breath Nova took sounded louder in the hush. A woman approached from the aisle. Court attire, navy blazer. Sensible heels that didn't echo when she walked. Mid-30s. Hair pulled into a low bun. Eyes sharp in a way that didn't miss anything. She stopped in front of Kaya. "I'm Judge Hale's clerk," she said quietly. "Lena Brooks." Kaya lifted her gaze. Recognition flickered. "You got the emails through." Lena nodded once. "Yes," then leaned closer. "But once this resumes Thorne's legal team is going to try to bury everything. They already started calling chambers." Kaya exhaled through her nose. "I expected that." Nova coughed. Soft at first. Dry. Kaya's hand froze. She shifted slightly, checking the tube, adjusting the valve the way someone, when they've practiced, in hospital hallways, more times than they can count. Lena watched, expression tightening. "How long does she?" "Not long without the therapy." Kaya answered. Lena's lips pressed together. "They'll argue the patent is experimental." Kaya nodded. "They always do." Alaric glanced over then. Just once. Lena felt it like a cold draft and straightened. "I should go," she said. Kaya caught her wrist. "Thank you." Lena hesitated, then squeezed Kaya's fingers quickly before walking back toward the judge's chambers. Nova leaned her head against her mother's ribs. "Mom, can we go home?" Kaya kissed her curls. "Soon, baby." She didn't say after this. She didn't say if we win. The bailiff called the room back to order. Everyone returned to their seats with the slow reluctance of people who knew the next minutes would be ugly. The judge settled behind the bench. "Proceed." Kaya stood. Her knees trembled. She locked them. "My daughter has a genetic respiratory failure," she said. Her voice carried, not loud, but clean. "It causes the lungs to collapse under stress. Infections hit harder. Oxygen doesn't absorb the way it should." A woman in the gallery inhaled sharply. "There is one therapy capable of reversing the enzyme deficiency," Kaya continued. "One." She turned, faced Alaric. "Your company owns the patent." Alaric folded his arms. His voice stayed smooth. "Experimental, not approved. You froze trials after positive results." The words hung there. Silence spread. Vivienne's eyes slid toward Alaric. Slow measuring. "That's inaccurate," he said. Kaya's voice wavered, just barely. You let children die while your stock climbed. The room stiffened. That's a lie. Kaya didn't argue. She lifted her tablet, tapped once. Screens mounted near the judge's bench flickered to life. Graphs filled the air. Survival curves, trial cohorts, approval probability models. Stamped at the bottom in bold grey letters. Genome ACIS coenfien. Rippled. One reporter whispered, "Holy." "You delayed release?" Kaya said, her finger sliding across the data, because scarcity made investors nervous. Another tap. Stock charts appeared. Upward spikes, press releases, trial extensions, and panic makes profits. Nova wheezed behind her. A thin, strained sound that cut through the courtroom. Kaya's shoulders stiffened, but she didn't turn around. Not yet. The judge leaned forward, elbows on the bench. "Mr. Thorne." Alaric's jaw hardened. "These are internal projections," he said. "They don't reflect actual medical outcomes." Kaya's voice sharpened. "They reflect board strategy." She zoomed in on an email chain. Highlighted names, executives, timestamps, subject line, delay phase through market sensitivity. Vivienne stared at the screens. "You told me the science wasn't ready," she said. Alaric didn't look at her. "The science is complex." Kaya exhaled. "I wrote part of the enzyme binding protocol." That finally earned her his full attention. His eyes narrowed. "You were a lab assistant. I was the one who stabilized the protein." A murmur rolled through the courtroom. Nova whispered, "Mum." Kaya glanced back, just long enough to meet her daughter's eyes. "I'm here." Then back to the judge. "You buried the cure." Alaric shook his head. "You're twisting incomplete data." Kaya tapped again. A slide popped up. Clinical trial notes. Subjeti respi 78% few fi dan fast trck. The judge went still. Alaric's attorney half rose. "Objection." The judge didn't blink. The attorney sat. Vivienne whispered, "Why would Elias fund off books pediatric care if this wasn't real?" Alaric's lips pressed into a thin line. Kaya swallowed. "He visited Nova in secret." "How convenient," Alaric snapped. "He brought stuffed animals." That wasn't data. That was worse. He learned how to prime her oxygen lines. Vivienne's throat bobbed. "He paid for scans under a false name." The judge looked up sharply. "Ms. Moretti, how do you know this?" Kaya opened a folder. Printed receipts slid onto the rail. Accounts, dates, initials. E.T. Alaric's eyes flicked. Fast. Too fast. Elias was compassionate, he said. "He was afraid," Kaya answered. "He told me someone inside Thorntonomics was blocking the release." The courtroom held its breath again. "And who did he think that was?" the judge asked. Kaya stared at Alaric. "I think he hoped it wasn't you." Vivienne stepped back. Not dramatically, just enough to leave space between them. Alaric noticed. His jaw tightened. Nova coughed again, harder this time. Kaya turned fully now. Knelt. Adjusted the tank. Her fingers shook. She hid it by tightening the slow. She whispered. Nova nodded. The judge cleared his throat. "Ms. Moretti, are you asserting that Mr. Thorne intentionally suppressed a life-saving therapy?" "Yes," the single word echoed. Alaric leaned forward. "You have no proof of intent." Kaya looked at him. "I have timestamps." She pulled up another thread. An executive summary. Projected mortality impact. Acceptable margin. Someone in the gallery swore under their breath. Vivienne whispered. What does that mean? Kaya answered without turning. It means the company calculated how many children could die without affecting valuation. The judge's face darkened. Alaric snapped. That's standard actuarial modeling. For hospitals, Kaya said. Not for cures you already own. The room vibrated with tension. Camera clicked, the judge raised a hand. This is serious. Kaya nodded. It's deadly. She closed the tablet. Let the screens go black. My daughter doesn't have years for corporate caution. Alaric's voice went cold. You should have gone to regulators. I tried. When? After you fired me. Vivienne's head snapped toward him. You fired her. She violated protocols. I reported suppression, Kaya said. Nova tugged her sleeve. Mum, please. Kaya swallowed. I'm almost done. The judge leaned back slightly. We will need to subpoena these records. Alaric's lawyers stirred. Kaya lifted her chin. Do it. Her eyes didn't leave Alaric. 'Cause that patent. A beat. It could save my child tomorrow. As the judge reached for his pen to issue orders, Alaric leaned toward his attorney and whispered something that made the man freeze, while across the room, Kaya's tablet buzzed in her hand with a new incoming alert labeled Trial dati statios congedi. Alaric's attorney rose so fast his chair scraped backward across the marble floor. The sound sharp enough to make several people flinch. Objection, Your Honor. These materials are unauthenticated, improperly obtained, and the judge lifted one hand without looking at him. Overruled. The word dropped with weight. Alaric's head snapped toward the bench. You can't. The judge's eyes hardened. Sit down, counsel. The attorney obeyed, though his face flushed with anger. Kaya didn't waste the moment. She tapped the screen again. The courtroom monitors flickered, then filled with cascading lines of text. Dark backgrounds, neon encryption overlays, time-stamped chains of internal messages that looked nothing like anything meant for public eyes. Email threads multiplied across the displays. Folders opened. Attachments listed. Subject lines glowed in stark white. Il ZXCP reski sulicufiamentio CCLEINMENT. A murmur spread through the gallery like heat rising from asphalt. Vivienne leaned forward involuntarily, eyes narrowing as she read. Alaric shook his head sharply. My brother didn't write those. Kaya didn't respond to him. She waited. Lena Brooks spoke before the silence could stretch too long, read the IP signatures. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Every head turned toward her, even the judge. Lena stepped out from behind the clerk's desk slowly, as if aware that the next few seconds would change her life, whether she wanted them to or not. I traced them myself. The judge stared at her. Your court staff. And before that, I ran cybersecurity for Thorne Genomics. She replied, calm but unflinching. 3 years. Left after a disagreement about data compartmentalization. Alaric's nostrils flared. Vivienne's gaze bounced between them. You worked for him? Vivienne asked. Lena nodded once. Directly under his chief systems architect. Kaya swallowed hard. Her hands trembled at her sides. She forced them still. Elias was going to go public, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. About Nova. about the cure, about the decision to bury it. She drew in a breath that sounded too loud in the hush. He told me the board vote had already happened. He said he was outnumbered. Alaric laughed under his breath. Sharp and ugly. That's fantasy. Kaya turned to him. He recorded everything. The room stilled again. He was collecting proof, she continued. He said he didn't trust internal audits, that people disappeared after asking the wrong questions. Vivienne whispered, barely audible, Alaric, tell me this is fake. Alaric didn't answer. He stared at the monitors instead, jaw locked so tight a muscle jumped beneath his skin. The judge leaned forward slowly. Ems Brooks, he said, explain these IP signatures. Lena lifted her chin. Every device in Thorn Genomics has a digital fingerprint. Elias's workstation used a quantum, seeded identifier embedded in its encryption layer. That signature appears on these emails. She pointed to the corner of the screen. Tiny code blocks scrolled past. The probability of fabrication is statistically negligible. Alaric snapped. You're speculating. Lena met his gaze. I'm stating math. The judge turned back to Kaya. You're alleging homicide. Kaya closed her eyes for a brief second, then opened them. Yes. Gasps flared around the room. A woman in the second row pressed both hands to her mouth. Vivienne took another step away from Alaric, slow enough that only people watching closely noticed. Kaya kept going. He said he was afraid of being watched, that his emails were being flagged, that meetings were happening without him. She paused. He told me if anything happened, to release everything. Alaric barked out a laugh. You're accusing me of killing my own brother in open court. Kaya's voice dropped. You killed him because he wouldn't let children die quietly. The words struck harder than shouting. The judge inhaled deeply. This court is not a criminal venue. I know, Kaya said. But it can trigger one. She turned the tablet again. A timeline appeared. Calendar entries. Board meetings. Patent freezes. Then a red dot on a date. ESTQRADACD. 2 weeks after a highlighted vote. Vivienne stared at it. You told me he was sailing. Alaric finally looked at her. He was. And these meetings. Routine. Kaya interjected. A boat nova. Vivienne's throat tightened. And the cure? She shook her head. No. Lena stepped closer to the bench. There's more. She typed rapidly into a terminal. A new thread surfaced. Security logs, deleted files, a GPS coordinate embedded inside metadata. Elias's phone uploaded this location the night he died, Lena said. The judge's brow furrowed. That's nowhere near the marina. Alaric surged to his feet. That's enough. Bailiffs shifted. Kaya's pulse roared in her ears. Vivienne whispered, Where is that? Lena answered, A private industrial pier used for Thorn Genomics hazardous shipments. The room erupted. The judge slammed the gavel. Order. Alaric stared straight ahead. For the first time, his composure cracked. Just a fraction. Kaya saw it. She felt something cold settle in her chest. The truth was closer than she had ever dared to imagine. The judge rubbed his temple. This is extremely serious. Vivienne looked like she might fall. Alaric, say something. He opened his mouth, closed it. Kaya stepped forward. Called me that night. Her voice shook. He said, If I don't make it back, Promise me you won't let them hide her." The courtroom leaned in. He said, "They already decided." Vivienne covered her lips with her hand. The judge stared at Alaric. "You are going to remain in this courtroom." Alaric's attorney whispered furiously. Alaric didn't move. Kaya's throat burned. "I didn't want to believe he was dead because of us." She blinked fast. But the emails kept coming. From his account. After he died, Lena nodded. They were being routed through a proxy node, controlled by Thorn Executive Access. The judge straightened. "That implies identity misuse." "It implies cleanup?" Kaya said quietly. Alaric's eyes snapped to her. "That's enough." She held his stare. "No, it isn't." Her voice steadied. "You thought Nova was small. A breath. Easy." Vivienne recoiled. "I didn't know," she whispered. Kaya didn't answer her. She kept her eyes on Alaric. "You thought I'd disappear." The judge inhaled sharply. "We will be forwarding this material to federal authorities." Alaric's lawyer went pale. Kaya felt her knees threaten to buckle. She locked them. Nova's tank hissed behind her. She didn't turn. Not yet. Before the judge could adjourn, a court officer hurried to the bench and whispered urgently. And Alaric's attorney's phone lit up with a message that drained the color from his face. "Fadar Waran. EISTHORN Cass." Vivienne's footsteps echoed in the hushed courtroom, deliberate and heavy, as she put space between herself and Alaric. Her expression was carefully neutral at first, the mask she had perfected over a lifetime of gallus and boardroom negotiations. But there was a tremor in her voice, almost imperceptible, when she spoke. "You told me your brother drowned." "Drunk," she said, each word like a small hammer hitting cold stone. Alaric's hand twitched toward his jacket pocket. The movement clipped and precise, but he didn't touch it. His eyes burned icy blue daggers at her. "This is manipulated," he said sharply, voice controlled but tense. "Fabricated to entrap me in court." Vivienne shook her head, slowly, as though each motion was a deliberate recalibration. "You swore to me. You swore it was an accident. That he, your brother, was careless. That Nova's existence didn't matter." Her lips trembled, though her posture tried to keep the mask of the Ice Queen intact. Kaya stepped forward, never breaking the rhythm of her own pulse. She didn't smile. She didn't sneer. She didn't give any sign that she was savoring Alaric's unraveling facade. Instead, she opened another file from her leather case with quiet authority. The room seemed to lean forward in anticipation, without anyone moving. It was a scanned copy of a clause, almost forgotten by the corporate world. The Maral Eldwaya Ushorai Pro Veson, written decades ago in Thorn Genomics' founding charter, in delicate cursive handwriting by the company's founder. Kaya cleared her throat and read it aloud, her voice steady, but carrying weight that made the air tremble. "IFA CEO is found to have knowingly endangered a biological heir. Control of the company transfers to a court-appointed administrator." The words hit like lightning. Every eye in the courtroom shifted toward Alaric. His hands clenched. His posture straightened until it looked brittle, like a statue on the verge of cracking. That clause was removed, Alaric spat, trying to reclaim authority in a voice that still carried an undercurrent of fear. His blue eyes darted toward the judge, as if hoping the court wouldn't understand the significance. "No," Kaya said softly, taking a step closer to him, voice almost intimate, cutting the distance between them without moving a muscle. "You tried. Elias stopped you." She let the words linger, letting them coil like smoke through the courtroom. Vivienne's hands rose slightly to her chest, a reflexive gesture as if bracing for impact. She had built her life on appearances, on reading people, on controlling outcomes, but nothing had prepared her for this revelation. The CEO she had thought was untouchable, the man she had planned to merge her legacy with, now stood exposed to a law he could not bend. Kaya locked her eyes onto Alaric for the first time. No pleading, no anger. Pure resolution. "I finished his work," she said, the words deliberate, each syllable a strike against his empire of deceit. Alaric's jaw tightened. His pupils dilated ever so slightly, an almost imperceptible crack in the ice. He opened his mouth to argue, to threaten to regain his footing, but nothing came out. Words, the weapon he wielded so masterfully, failed him. Vivienne's hand trembled at her side. She realized she had been complicit in silence for too long, standing beside a man whose moral compass had been shattered by greed. The facade of the Ice Queen, the woman who never faltered, who never flinched, was beginning to crack. Her lips parted, but no sound emerged immediately. Instead, her eyes reflected the first hints of horror, disbelief, and betrayal. The courtroom shifted around them like a storm that had suddenly erupted from nowhere. Reporters' fingers hesitated over keyboards. Cameras clicked, catching every nuance of the moment. Even the judge leaned forward, recognizing that the balance of power had changed in a single breath. Kaya turned her gaze back to the document, letting her hand hover over it, as if weighing the gravity of her next step. "This isn't just a clause," she said quietly, letting it roll through the courtroom like a silent drumbeat. "It's justice. It's the only protection for a child who should never have been collateral in your empire." Alaric's lawyer leaned in, whispering hurriedly, "You can't. This will destroy him." Alaric silenced him with a sharp glance. He didn't speak, didn't move. His mind was running faster than anyone could follow, calculating every escape, every loophole. But the stakes were no longer abstract. Nova's life, Elias's death, the morality of the company. And now Vivienne's awakening had all converged. Vivienne's eyes flicked to Alaric's, searching for any sign of explanation, a thread of truth she could grasp. All she saw was panic, barely masked by pride, and something far worse, fear. Fear of consequences that no amount of money or influence could mitigate. Kaya didn't flinch under his gaze. She knew what he was thinking, and she had prepared for it. She pressed forward, sliding another folder across the table toward the judge. Internal memos, board meeting minutes, timestamps, and notes that detailed his attempts to override ethical oversight, all tied directly to the suppression of the therapy Nova needed. The judge's face darkened as he examined them. M's. Moretti, these are damning, he said, and they are accompanied by verified internal timestamps. Kaya nodded, holding his gaze with unshakable calm. Every one of them, Your Honor. Elias ensured nothing could be erased without trace. I merely retrieved it. Alaric's lips parted, his voice low and controlled, yet quivering underneath the steel. This clause. It's outdated. Meaningless. Outdated. Kaya's voice cut through him, sharp as glass. It's the law your father put in place to protect heirs from men like you. Vivienne's hands clenched, her nails pressing into her palms, as if bracing herself to stop shaking. Her mind raced. The man she had trusted, the future she had planned, was crumbling. She realized now that the empire she had longed to be part of wasn't a fortress. It was a cage built on lies, deception, and the calculated indifference to human life. Alaric's shoulders tensed. He shifted slightly, scanning the courtroom. The lawyers, the judge, the press, they were all witnesses to his unraveling. But no one could stop what was coming next. Kaya had positioned herself perfectly. She had leverage, evidence, and moral authority, and she wasn't going to relent. She took a step closer to the bench, her voice lowering, deliberate. The moment a CEO knowingly endangers a direct heir, the morality authority provision is triggered. There is no discretion. Alaric's pulse was visible at his temple. He clenched his fists, teeth grinding silently. The ice in his eyes flickered, and a sheen of sweat formed along his hairline. He had built Thorn Genomics from nothing, controlling every variable, manipulating every outcome. But for the first time, he faced something he couldn't control: justice, written into the very foundation of his company. Vivienne swallowed hard. The fear in Alaric's eyes was enough to strip away her illusions. Her posture softened, though her expression remained stern. She realized she had been playing a role beside a man who had no honor, and for the first time, she felt the weight of betrayal. Not just toward herself, but toward innocent lives ruined by ambition. Kaya's voice resonated once more across the courtroom, each word deliberate, unwavering. I will not allow Nova to be collateral. I will not allow Elias's sacrifice to be forgotten. I am activating this provision. The judge adjusted his glasses, flipping through the charter again. His hand trembled slightly as he recognized the language. Ms. Moretti, if what you claim is valid, you may assume temporary administrative control pending review. Alaric's face twisted. He had spent years honing his image, mastering his empire, manipulating everyone around him. But he had underestimated her. Kaya's quiet authority, her moral certainty, and her unyielding dedication had shattered the illusion. Vivienne exhaled, a mixture of relief, shock, and fear intertwining in her chest. The Ice Queen, so carefully composed for decades, felt a fracture of reality pressing against her, forcing her to see the man she thought she knew for what he truly was. Kaya looked down at Nova, who clutched her mother's hand, eyes wide but trusting, breathing steady now in rhythm with her mother's calm determination. She straightened again and faced Alaric. letting the words hang between them, an unbreakable line of steel. "You thought your empire could shield you from accountability," she said softly. "But some debts, some crimes, cannot be hidden." Alaric's throat moved, but no sound emerged. The room felt suspended in that moment. All the tension of years, all the weight of lives lost, hanging above him. Alaric's phone buzzed sharply against the polished wood of the bench. He glanced at the screen. His face went pale, almost ghostly, as he read the single line of text. "Initiate emergency corporate lockdown. Headquarters compromised. Evidence breach detected." And from somewhere in the gallery, a shadowed figure emerged, silently observing him with a smile that promised the next move would not be his to control. Vivienne's hands lingered on the broken necklace on the floor, diamonds catching the light like shattered stars. The sound of it cracking against the marble echoed through the courtroom, louder than any gavel, a metaphor for the empire around her beginning to fracture. Alaric's eyes narrowed. He lurched forward, instincts honed from years of corporate domination, aiming for Kaya's tablet. The source of the chain reaction he couldn't stop. Bailiffs intercepted him with precision, forming a human wall between the man who had once commanded legions and the woman who now held the key to his downfall. "You don't understand what you're touching," he hissed, teeth bared, fury and fear intermingling in a way that made the spectators shiver. Kaya's posture didn't falter. Her gaze, steady and unwavering, met his icy stare without blinking. "Oh, I do," she said calmly, the quiet certainty in her tone cutting sharper than any yell could. She inhaled slowly, grounding herself as she prepared to unleash the truth that would dismantle his carefully constructed world. "You underestimated me," she continued, letting each word fall deliberately, like pieces of a blueprint being revealed. "You thought I'd vanish when you fired me, thought I'd disappear quietly into the shadows of your empire. But I stayed. I studied. I learned how your company breathes, how it moves, every protocol, every loophole, every hidden corner you thought no one could touch." Her hand hovered over the tablet, fingers poised as if conducting an orchestra. The courtroom seemed to hold its breath. She tapped the screen lightly. "I don't just have your DNA," she said, letting the words hang, the tension tightening like a drawn wire. She paused deliberately, letting the anticipation settle over every person present. "I have your kill switch." Alaric's blue eyes widened, the first crack in his composure becoming visible. His hand twitched toward the tablet again, but the bailiff's hold was firm. He could sense the shift, feel the tide turning, and for the first time, the certainty he had carried for decades faltered. The judge's voice thundered, commanding and incredulous. "Explain." Now. Kaya's fingers flew over the tablet, navigating through secure protocols, encrypted files, and internal triggers. She turned the screen toward the bench, so the judge and his clerks could see, although none of them could yet grasp the full magnitude of what it meant. "The Morality Authority Clause," she said, steady and deliberate, "triggers an emergency board vote and federal review when a CEO is found to have knowingly endangered a biological heir. The emails, the internal communications, the proof of delayed trials, they activate it automatically. Lena Brooks nodded, stepping forward, her presence calm and unwavering. "Already transmitted," she said. "Every endpoint, every server, Federal Review, and internal audit systems have recorded it. It's irreversible once the chain is activated." Alaric's face drained of color. For a moment, he was stripped bare of all his defenses. The empire he had built, the empire he had spent years manipulating, bending laws, people, and perception to protect, was suddenly no longer his to control. His jaw flexed, his lips parted, but no words came. The control he had wielded over boards, over investors, over the media, over life and death in his company's corridors, had slipped entirely. Vivienne's eyes widened as she realized the magnitude. The man she had once trusted as untouchable now had no cards left to play. For the first time, fear glimmered behind his icy gaze. She finally understood what Kaya had meant when she claimed to hold the kill switch. It wasn't just symbolic. It was literal leverage that could strip Alaric of power in an instant. Kaya's voice softened, but every word was weighted with gravity. "This isn't about revenge," she said, letting the courtroom feel the calm strength behind her words. "It's about justice. For Nova. For Elias. For every child whose life your decisions endangered for profit." The gallery shifted uneasily, realizing that this was more than a legal battle. This was the exposure of decades of hidden decisions, suppressed science, and human lives sacrificed on the altar of greed. Even the reporters stopped typing for a brief moment, captivated by the drama that was unfolding in front of them. Alaric's lips quivered, almost imperceptibly, as if the words he wanted to say were lost somewhere between pride, rage, and the gnawing realization that he had lost control. He leaned slightly toward his attorney, whispering something urgent, but the man froze mid-step, realizing whatever plan they had was now irrelevant. The authority in the room had shifted entirely. Vivienne swallowed hard, a mixture of fear and awe battling within her. She had been complicit in ambition, standing beside a man who had ruthlessly manipulated people's lives, but now she saw him stripped of all illusions. The Ice Queen mask she wore trembled as she watched the first signs of genuine vulnerability from a man who had never before been unmasked. Kaya took a step forward, letting her presence dominate the courtroom without raising her voice. "You built an empire of glass," she said softly, words slicing through the air like a scalpel. "Every corner of it is visible now. Every secret, every manipulation. And yet you thought my silence meant weakness. You thought you could walk over me, over Nova, over justice itself." Alaric's hands trembled slightly at his sides. He had trained for crises, rehearsed responses, controlled narratives for decades, but nothing had prepared him for this. He realized, in that instant, that the game had shifted entirely. The rules he thought he created no longer applied, and the most critical piece of his life, his control, was being removed by the very person he had underestimated. Vivienne stepped closer to the edge of the bench, eyes flicking between Alaric and Kaya, realizing that the man she had trusted, admired, and planned her future with was being dismantled not by lawyers, reporters, or public scrutiny, but by truth, morality, and a woman he had once considered insignificant. Kaya's fingers danced across the tablet, executing the final commands. A notification appeared on the judge's monitor. Emergency board vote initiated. Federal review in process. CEO authority suspended pending verification. The courtroom fell into a stunned silence. Alaric's eyes went wide. He lurched forward instinctively, but the bailiff's arms held him fast. He was trapped in the moment, powerless in a way he had never experienced before. Vivienne's lips parted slightly, a mixture of fear, disbelief, and dawning realization. The Ice Queen's composed exterior cracked entirely as she understood that the world she had known, the man she had aligned with, and the empire she had been preparing to claim were all being stripped away before her very eyes. Kaya's gaze softened only slightly as she looked at Nova, who was clutching her mother's hand, sensing the tension but trusting her implicitly. She straightened again and faced Alaric fully, letting the weight of inevitability hang over him. "You believed that your power was untouchable," Kaya said, her voice resonating with calm authority. "You were wrong. And now, every move you make is governed by law, morality, and consequence." Alaric's lips parted, trying to speak, but no words emerged. The empire he had built with blood, manipulation, and ambition was now being dismantled in real time, and he understood, perhaps for the first time, that there was no escape from the justice that was finally catching up to him. Alaric's eyes darted to the courtroom doors. The security cameras blinked, screens flickering with live feeds he couldn't control. A single encrypted message pinged across his tablet, and when he opened it, his face turned ghostly pale. "System override. Luoki badul mt. Piri pyra for imnd Fiancée ZWR." And from the back of the courtroom, a tall figure in dark clothing stepped forward, silhouette partially obscured, watching Alaric with a cold, calculated patience that promised the next move would leave him powerless. Sirens screamed outside, echoing through the courthouse like the toll of inevitability. Federal agents entered, their presence commanding, precise and final. Vivienne stepped back from Alaric, her composure fracturing. The man she had trusted, admired, and planned her life with now radiated a terrifying vulnerability. "This isn't over," Alaric whispered, voice low and tense, aimed only at Kaya. She crouched beside Nova, adjusting the child's tiny hand in hers. "It is for her," she said softly, calm but resolute. The little girl's wide eyes searched her mother's, trusting her completely, unaware of the storm that had just passed. The gavel struck sharply. "Miss Secker." "Thorne," the judge's voice boomed, "you are remanded pending investigation into homicide, securities fraud, and medical suppression." The metallic click of handcuffs rang through the room. Alaric's icy blue eyes, always so commanding, now shimmered with raw fear. For the first time, he understood the consequences he could not manipulate. Vivienne's hands trembled. The empire she had envisioned, the life she had planned beside him, crumbled in an instant. Her mask of the Ice Queen slipped, revealing shock and dawning horror. The man she had aligned with, admired, and feared was gone, replaced by a man exposed, powerless, and utterly human. Kaya's eyes never left Nova. She watched the child breathe steadily, every inhale a triumph against greed, cruelty, and manipulation. This was the life that mattered, the one she had fought for, not revenge, not power. Life. Alaric's lips moved, but no words emerged. The empire he had built with blood, ambition, and secrecy had collapsed in real time. Every manipulation, every threat, every calculated move was rendered irrelevant by the combination of truth, law, and morality. Vivienne exhaled slowly, realizing that power, prestige, and control were fleeting. She glanced at the shattered diamond necklace on the floor, a perfect metaphor for the illusions they had all clung to. The courtroom fell into a tentative quiet. Agents coordinated next steps. Reporters clicked away, capturing the fall of a king and the rise of a woman whose courage had rewritten the rules. The judge reviewed the procedural documents, verifying the enforcement of the morality clause. Kaya tightened her grip on Nova's hand, feeling the child's heartbeat, warm and steady against her palm. She whispered, "Your life starts now, truly starts now." Nova blinked up at her, trusting and calm in the aftermath of chaos. Vivienne lingered, giving them space. She recognized the unspoken truth. The real power in the room no longer belonged to Alaric. Kaya had orchestrated justice, not through rage, but through strategy, courage, and an unbreakable moral compass. Even as Alaric disappeared beyond the courtroom doors, the echoes of his crimes, the mechanisms of his downfall, and the lives he endangered lingered. Kaya and Nova remained the center, proof that one life could outweigh the greed of an empire. But then, a subtle shift in the shadows caught Kaya's attention. A figure, previously unnoticed, leaned against the back wall, watching her Nova and the departing Alaric with unnerving patience. The presence was calm, deliberate, and silent, but it promised that the story was far from over. Kaya adjusted Nova's jacket and checked her breathing. The girl was safe for now, but the pin from her tablet made her blood run cold. UNKNOWNACSS data BEHE NCD MCS. Kaya's eyes narrowed. From the gallery, the shadowed figure stepped forward, half illuminated, a chilling smile crossing their face. The fight was far from over. The Boston park smelled like spring, crisp and earthy, with hints of freshly cut grass, mingling with the distant aroma of roasted coffee from a corner cafe. The city hummed in the background, but here, in this small patch of sunlight and laughter, it felt distant, like a world suspended, a quiet pocket, untouched by greed, scandal, or ambition. Nova's small feet pounded against the path, shoes barely keeping up with her boundless energy. Her arms flung wide, hair bouncing with each step, face radiant with pure joy. The little girl was running, not shuffling, not wheezing, not tethered to any machines that once dictated her every breath. She was free. Truly free. Kaya sat on a weathered bench, sunlight warming her face and cascading over her skin in golden streaks. Her laptop rested lightly on her knees, fingers dancing over the keys as she reviewed her latest draft. The title glowed on the screen, Open Source Pediatric Transplant Models. She paused, rereading a paragraph. A faint smile forming as she realized the magnitude of what she had built. Knowledge that had once been buried for profit was now available to save lives. 6 months had passed since the courtroom battle. 6 months since Alaric Thorne had been escorted away, stripped of his empire, his power, and his illusions of control. 6 months of rebuilding, of cleaning the shadows he had left behind. Thorne Genomics no longer carried his name with authority, no longer stood as a monument to greed. Kaya oversaw it now, officially, temporarily, but publicly acknowledged by Federal Review and the board as the interim administrator. She had inherited a system corrupted by ambition, but she wielded it with purpose. Guided by integrity, compassion, and the memory of the lives Alaric had endangered. Across the city, whispers persisted, corporate analysts, reporters, even old investors speculating, but Kaya no longer cared for the noise. Vivienne had testified in full transparency, publicly admitting complicity in past decisions, but also revealing the coercion and manipulation she had endured. Lena Brooks had become the lead federal analyst for ongoing investigations, a quiet genius whose cyber work had exposed the final threads of Alaric's empire. Together, Kaya and Lena had dismantled the systems that had allowed greed to thrive. Nova ran back toward Kaya, laughing so freely that the sound carried like a melody across the park. Her small hands reached out, and Kaya caught her, lifting her into her arms. They hugged tight, the sun falling across them in warm streaks, highlighting the small curve of Nova's cheek, the faint freckles that dotted her nose, the life that had once been so fragile but now roared with vitality. "Mum," Nova exclaimed, burying her head against Kaya's shoulder. Kaya tightened her arms, letting the wind brush against them both. "Yes, baby," she whispered. "It's all yours now. You're safe. No one can touch you." For a moment, Kaya closed her eyes, inhaling the spring air, letting herself feel the weight of what had been accomplished. Justice had been served, not with vengeance, but with intelligence, courage, and unrelenting moral clarity. Alaric had fallen, not with a dramatic scream or violent confrontation, but with the quiet inevitability of someone finally held accountable by the very systems they had tried to manipulate. Nova wriggled slightly in her arms, giggling. "I want to go again." Kaya laughed softly, setting her down gently. "Go, baby, run." Nova took off again, small legs pumping, laughter spilling over. Kaya watched her disappear into the sunlight, drenched grass, free and untethered. A group of reporters lingered across the park, cameras pointed from a respectful distance. They captured moments, but this, the life of a child breathing freely, of a mother who had fought, of justice quietly prevailing. This wasn't for them. Kaya returned to her laptop, fingers brushing over the keyboard, checking the latest collaboration notes with pediatric hospitals around the world. Her draft outlined protocols, open access research, and innovative solutions for transplant compatibility. Knowledge that had once been locked behind patents, stock manipulation, and corporate secrecy. Now it was public. Now it could save countless lives. A soft breeze carried the laughter across her face, carrying with it a sense of finality, of a chapter closed, of a life reclaimed. Kaya's gaze drifted toward the horizon, where the city met the skyline still gleaming, yet less imposing than before. The towers Alaric had built in marble and steel now seemed fragile in comparison to the strength she held here, in her arms, in Nova's bright eyes, in the lives she had saved. Vivienne walked past, slower than usual, her steps deliberate. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her acknowledgement was visible in her posture, in the way her gaze followed Nova and Kaya. There was no malice left, no ambition driving her forward. Just the understanding that the power she had pursued beside Alaric had been hollow. True strength lay here, in the care, the courage, the truth.